Om Vang me manasi pratisthita mano me vachi pratishtitam Aviravir maedhi Vedasya ma'ani stha Shrutam me ma prahasi Anena dhitena horatran Samdadhami Ritam vadishyami Satyam vadishyami Tanmam avatu Tadvaktaram avatu Avatu mam Avatu vaktaram Avatu vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we can start with where we left and then move into Sanskrit. Yes? So when he comments on this Parashara Shaktya Rishi, he starts with a very interesting observation of this Rishi. He says that, page 218, we find another allusion of Sarama in a hymn by Parashara Shaktya. This is one of the suktas which most clearly reveal the sense of the Vedic imagery, like most indeed of the hymns of Parashara. A very luminous poet who loves always to throw back something more than a corner of the mystic's veil. So he gives a little more, a little extra, and we will see it today in this hymn. It is brief, and I shall translate it in full. Now we are going to this file which I sent to you, to this beautiful hymn of Parashara Shaktya. And it says, Nikaviya vedhasach shashvatach kar, haste dadhano nariya puruni, Agnir bhuvat raipati rainam, Satra chakrano amritani vishva. Sri Aurobindo translation. He has created within the seer knowings of the eternal disposer of things, holding in his hand many powers, powers of the divine Purushas. Agni, creating together all immortalities, becomes the master of the divine riches. Now I'm going into my interpretation, where I will be kind of dwelling also on the terms. Of the eternal ordainer, Vedhasach Shashvatach. He has fashioned and put into the lower regions Nikar, the hymns or the rhythms of the knower, Kaviya, of the Kavi, of the seer, holding and controlling the all-fulfilling powers of the souls, Haste Dadhano Nariya Puruni. Why I'm saying and controlling? Because the hand was always not only holding but also controlling, was always doing something more than holding. Holding for what? Holding for the sake of controlling. And all-fulfilling powers of the soul, also it's additional. Puruni, all-fulfilling from Puru, many ways or many place of being, or kind of filling all possible spaces. Yeah? And from here, all-fulfilling powers of Nri, of the soul, of the individual souls, many. Of fullnesses even of the soul. Agni becomes thus the Lord of all riches. Agnir bhuvat rahipati rainam, fashioning together all immortalities. Satra chakrano amritani vishva. It is the vision of the relation of the involved and uninvolved supreme. The rhythms of the consciousness power of the eternal ordainer are introduced into the lower hemisphere, Nikar. So to say, he makes them at the bottom. He puts them at the bottom, as it were, or fashions them to be down. These rhythms are the all-fulfilling powers of the souls. They are not only introduced and left to act there, as it were, so to say, cut off from their origin, but are constantly controlled and held by the involved supreme Agni. Thus he becomes the Lord of all riches, and thus creates all the immortalities by all these means. It's as if he has strings attached. So these are like the strings pervading all the manifestation, which are held by the Lord hidden within. So there is a multiple vision of things. There is the ordainer, and there is his rhythms, or the words, or the poems even, which he puts down, holding and controlling the all-fulfilling powers of the souls by this. So to say, the strings reaching out into the transcendental and the soul's power, which are put down into the subconscious or inconscient, and all of them are controlled by Agni, who thus becomes the Lord of riches and creates all immortalities. What it says also, that immortality is not something given but has to be created in terms of the sacrifice. Now the second verse. Asme vatsam parishantam navindan ichanto vishve amrita amurah shramayuvav padaviyo dhyam dhas tastuvpade parame charo agneh. All the immortals, they who are not limited by ignorance, desiring, found him in us, as if the calf of the cow Aditi, existing everywhere, laboring, traveling to the seat, holding the thought they attained in the supreme seat. To the shining glory of Agni. It is in us, I am translating literally, asme. It is in us that they all, who are immortal, found him. Asme vishve vindan, as ever young, vatsam, and present everywhere, parishantam, na. And interesting here, na, it is saying that as if present everywhere. We will come back to it again. Being immortal, they desire him, ichanto amrita. Being not bound by darkness, amurah. Or there can be other translation, who are not hasty, but still are concentrated on their work and their goal. Shramayuvav padaviyah, holding to their higher concentration. Dhyamdhah, they have come and stood together in the supreme and beautiful place of Agni. Tastuvpade parame charo Agni. Now this is the whole vision in one verse. I read it once in the morning a few days back, and it was like an amazing vision of the whole thing in one simple verse. Now let us go through it. Maybe we will see it if we are lucky, sensitive enough to see it again. There are a few interesting things here in the usage of language. In fact, that the word all is used, they all immortals found him. It's very interesting that why suddenly all, Vishve Amrita Vindan, says that all who are immortals find him in us. It is as if a universal truth for all immortals. And though they are immortals and bound by nothing, they still look for him, Ichantach. Why should immortals that are free desire to find Agni? It seems that there is something more for them to achieve. Therefore the verse ends with the phrase, they have stood in his supreme and wonderful place, being totally realized, having the consciousness and the bliss of the Supreme. Now let us look into this verse still a little longer. It is in us, and it is important, asme, that they all who are immortals found him as ever young, Vatsam, so to say, a child, an eternal child, and present everywhere as if. Now this as if is interesting addition, because it is hidden within us, how it can be present everywhere. And because it is impossible to be present everywhere and hidden at the same time, for the consciousness to understand, I think Rishi adds this na, which means as if. In the experience it is understood, it is seen that the hidden, ever young the being is present everywhere, but it is hidden. So they discovered him, they found him. How could they look for someone who is present everywhere and not see him? So there is some contradiction in the logic. And I think because of that he adds as if present everywhere. But I may be mistaken. But it was a first very significant addition to the experience, as if present everywhere, because he is present everywhere. Being immortal, they desire him. Being not bound by darkness, amurach, from mu to be bound, or not hasty also. They are not hasty, they are but still concentrated on their work. Shrama yuvach, they are bound to their shrama, to their working, and padaviyach, to their goal, or to their state of, or to their goal, to the state they want to arrive. So holding to their higher concentration, I am translated dhyam dhach, those who are holding dhach, dhyam, the higher thought, or the thought which is like a concentration from the same root dha, holding to their own holding, so to say. Other people. All right. So we are in the second verse, this important second verse of this hymn. I have read it already, but I will read again. All the immortals who are not limited by ignorance desire found him in us, as if the calf of the cow Aditi, existing everywhere, laboring, traveling to the seat, holding the thought, they attained in the supreme seat to the shining glory of Agni. One can appreciate Sri Aurobindo's translation much more after trying to translate the verse oneself. After trying to translate myself, I can really see what he does, why he puts it this way. So in my interpretation, it is in us, I'm going literally word by word as it is in the verse, they all who are immortal found him. And it was striking me why all these who are immortal found him in us. Why all who are immortal? Why not some, some immortal found him in us, some immortal found him somewhere else? But all of them, all the immortals, all who are immortals, find him alone. He is the one for all the immortals. There is no other one. He is the only one, so to say. And that makes me think about the importance of the psychic being. And that simple phrase, what Jesus said, that I am the only Son of God, which sounds a little bit ambitious and very much abused by the church, but truly speaking, the significance is elsewhere, I think. The only Son of God means there is the only representative, there is a true representative, the very one. It is the one whom all the immortals find within us. Yeah? It is the only one. There is no other Son of God, so to say. And it's quite interesting. We will come to this term again in this hymn at the end. And Sri Aurobindo comments on this Son of God, or at the end of this chapter, what it means that they discovered the Son. Who is the Son? From the capital S. Ever young, Vatsam, present everywhere, as if, because he is hidden. They still desire him, being immortal and being not bound by anything. They're totally concentrated on him, to find him, to discover him. And they are laborious, they are concentrated on their work and their goal. Holding to the higher mind or thought, the Dhyamdhar, or holding the higher plan or vision by which they have to achieve or to find him. They have come and stood together, all the immortals, in the supreme and beautiful place of Agni. Now, yes? Beautiful. I clearly perceive that one thing which is also within every one of these infinities, so to say, immortalities, is the thing they are looking for. And they can find it, and through it become something more. And Sri Aurobindo speaks about it later. So they are looking for that which they already carry, but they cannot get it otherwise than through the sacrifice. And there is the whole, so to say, attraction for the gods to come down and to be engaged in this manifestation, because through it they will find the very thing what they meant for. But they are still deficient in their, so to say, immortalities. They are still looking for something. Why the immortals should look for something? If they are not bound by darkness, but not bound by ignorance, what are they looking for? What do they desire? They ichantach, they desire him. Whom? They desire the one whom they represent unknowingly still, though they are immortals. And that is actually the Vedic scheme of things, that these gods, they are not involved and must be involved in the process. And in the story of the mother, it was that the gods didn't plunge into the darkness. They were scared to go down. They stayed up. They said, no, we will not plunge into that darkness. So the Supreme Mother had to find another force, the force of love, as she calls, which could take on itself the darkness. So that force plunged and gods didn't. So now, in the process of manifestation, they have to come down still, though they didn't plunge. So they will have to make that plunge, but there will be already somebody else there within, the Lord, so to say, the Agni, who would accommodate them and use them for the manifestation of that which was meant to be. And it's quite interesting. So So at the end they had to do the same thing they refused to do at the beginning. That was the Vedic vision. So that's why, being immortal, they still wanted him, and they found him. They discovered the one, and by discovering him, by really doing the work and being concentrated on the goal and also on the higher thought or vision, they came and stood together. Again, this together is an interesting word. These immortals, not few of them, but all of them, they came together to this beautiful and supreme place of the Lord Agni. It's quite a thing to think about, that all these infinities have to be fulfilled within the realm of Agni, of the Lord. So the third verse continues this thinking. Tisro yadagne sharadastuvam it Shuchim gharitena shuchayach saparyan namani chiddadhire yajniyani asudayanta tanuvach sujatah. Sri Aurobindo's translation. O Agni, when through the 3 years, or yes, he says 3 symbolic seasons or period, corresponding perhaps to the passage through the 3 mental heavens. They, pure, had served thee, the pure one, with the ghrita. They held the sacrificial names and sat moving to the supreme heaven, forms well born. It's another absolutely an amazing passage, which is again giving the whole vision, how it is being done. For 3 years, O Agni, or covering triple heaven of the mind, and we know what is triple heaven in our paradigm is illumined mind, higher mind, and pure reason, or mental mind, vital mind, and physical mind. These triple heavens, 3 heavens of the Veda. Tisro Dyavach. So for covering triple heaven of the mind, Tisro Yadagne Sharadach, they who are pure, those transcendental immortal beings, served you, the pure, with the clarity of a purified mentality. Tuvam ich shuchim gharitena shuchayach saparyan. They have, saparyan has a strange meaning. It's serving and also making oblation. It is as if they made an oblation of the purified thought, ghrita, to the fire. They were serving him, kind of conducting this oblation over 3 mental heavens. Over 3 mental heavens they were making oblation of this ghrita. And by that they served him, his growth within manifestation. They have held or established the sacrificial names and made the perfectly born bodies move towards the goal. Asudayanta tanuvach sujata. The whole process is described here. So I'm kind of expounding on this. Second, I lost. Covering the triple heaven of the mind, illumined mind, higher mind, and pure reason, with the thoughts of clarified mentality, they who are pure serve the pure, who is hidden within the manifestation. This may refer to the process of support by the higher inspirational thoughts of the universal gods and godheads, who by covering the triple regions of the mind support the growing Lord within the manifestation. And it is done by establishing the sacrificial names here in the lower hemisphere, thus clarifying the purpose and redirecting consciousness towards the discovery of the pure one growing within, so that it may result in a creation of perfectly born bodies moving towards their higher purpose in manifestation. In this verse I could really even feel or see how these higher thoughts or pure thoughts or inspirations, intuitions which are coming from above, they are purifying not only mentality of ourselves, but they are also fixing our consciousness in a particular way to look for the Lord within manifestation, to always be attentive to all the signs which may appear in his, so to say, from his presence or from his movement and growth. Always be attentive. They are kind of creating another mentality, and by that they serve his growth from within. They create and establish sacrificial names, and it is a very important thing. Names as meaningful formations of how things should be done. It is by these names, sacrificial names, that we really proceed in this discovery. And once that is done, once consciousness is tuned to these sacrificial names, what it does, it results in a creation of perfectly born bodies, entities, out of manifestation. There is a change, a transformation of this body, of these bodies, of mental, vital and physical bodies, which are becoming something else. They become perfectly born, sujata, tanuach. Tanu is the body, but also it's an extension of the being. These extensions of the being become perfectly born. And as Aurobindo translates, asudayanta, they, so to say, move towards the goal or the higher purpose. So there is still the path to walk, but they have to be born, the formations within the mental, vital and physical purushas. These formations are to be born. By the way, it reminds me about what Mother said, that actually she had made already perfect formations in the mental and vital being, and she, even when she dealt with the physical being, she, so to say, as she says, she let them go and do something else. So to say, she didn't engage them in this exercise of influencing the physical being, because they were already formed perfectly, and they became, so to say, immortal formations, mental and vital beings, extensions. They were perfectly born already, sujata. And it may be referring exactly to this formation. So these immortal beings which are beyond, they are influencing our mentality by this clarified mentality, and thus they serve the growth of the Lord within. It's not yet visible how it is happening, but it is already clear that there must be a process. In the next verse it will become visible how it is happening. There is the whole picture given, how it is taking shape. We go to the next and see. Arodasi brihati vevidanach prarudriya jabhrire yajniyasach vidan marto nemadhita chekitvan agnim pade parame tasthivansam. Sri Aurobindo's translation. They had knowledge of the vast heaven and earth, and bore them forward. They, the sons of Rudra, the lords of the sacrifice, the mortal, awoke to vision, and found Agni standing in the seat supreme. Interpretation. Knowing the two great ones, heaven and earth, Arodasi Brihati Vevidanach, the lords of the sacrifice, the sons of Rudra, bore them forward in their evolutionary march. Prarudriya Jabhrireya Jnyasach. Pra Jabhrire, they bore them forward. And because of their action, the mortal who is seeking in his individual effort becomes aware of his presence within himself, of Agni's presence, of the Lord's presence within himself. Vidan Martach, seeking mortal, not just any mortal, but the one who is seeking, who is looking for it. Nemadhita Chikitvan. And it is an interesting word, Nemadhita, which means, I'm giving here, apart, aside, so to say, as if, within himself. That's why I put it in his individual effort, becomes aware. As if in the separate being, in his individual being, he becomes aware of the Supreme Presence. As Agni, who is abiding in the highest heaven. Agnim pade parametan stivansa. So, though Agni is in the highest heaven, he is still as if separately located within the individual. It is the vision of evolution in a proper sense. The powers of transformation, the lords of the sacrifice, bear and move forward the two luminous firmaments of our physical and mental consciousness. That is the confirmation with the previous verse that they establish sacrificial names and make these extensions of our being perfectly born. Extensions of our being is our mental and physical extensions, formations, firmaments. So now, verse number 5. Samjanana upasidan abhijnu patnivanto namasiyan namasyan ririkvansa stanuvach krinvata svach sakha sakhyuch nimishi rakshamana. Sri Aurobindo's translation I gave first. Knowing perfectly, or in harmony, they kneeled down to him. They, with their wives, the female energies of the gods, bowed down to him who is worthy of obeisance. Purifying themselves, or perhaps exceeding the limits of heaven and earth, they created their own, their proper or divine forms, guarded in the gaze, each friend of the friend. The last friend is with capital F. I'm reading my interpretation now. Knowing and agreeing, they approach him and kneel before him. Samjanana upasidana bhijnu. Samjna is a root which means to know totally and also to agree in self-realization of each other, of self-knowing, become one with self-knowing of everyone. So to say, knowing and agreeing with each other, or with him being the one. They approach him and kneel before him. Abhijnu, they come on their knees. Sidan, they sit down on their knees in front of him or near him. So they are no more active. This kneeling down is a symbol of becoming less active in your own way. So to say, you surrender yourself to the action of another. So you are standing on the knees, you cannot move in the way how you move. Now you are, surrendering to another. With all their active and potential energies, they surrender totally to him who is worthy of surrender. Patnivantah namasiyam namasyan. It's an interesting also concept, patnivantah, with all their active and potential energies, with their wives, so to say, with their possibilities to act and their actions, everything what they have and they are, they bring into this surrender. Namasiyam namasyan. To the one who is namasiya, worthy of surrender. Exceeding themselves. Literally, who have emptied themselves. Ririkvansach, who made empty space within, or vacant space within. They do not claim that space anymore. They create their own new forms. Tanuvach krunvatasvach. So by denying themselves, they create their own new forms. Being guarded by constant attention, each friend of the friend. Sakhasakyuh nimishi rakshamanach. Nimishi means in the glimpse, in the sight, or in the constant, concentrated sight or the vision, they are guarded. Rakshamanach. They are protected in a constant glimpse, in a moment. Each friend of the friend. So to say, it's not only he protects all of them, but each one of them protects each one of them. Because their friend, the very one, is present in every one of them. It is a nearly supramental vision. It is an interesting description of the process of transformation from the old being to the new one. First we have to see and to know the purpose and the meaning of the sacrifice and the role of Agni in this transformation, as it were, which is depicted in the first 4 verses. But once we know him, we must surrender to him all we are and can be. Patnivantah, with all our potential and kinetic energies. And thus exceeding ourselves, or rather emptying or vacating the being for his action or his being, we can create our own new forms. It could mean the individual forms of the Supreme in manifestation. And in this process, we are constantly guarded by his attention and each individual soul and soul formation in this universal moment. We are coming to the verse number 6. Trich saptayad guhiyani tuveit. Padavidan nihita yajniyasach. Tebhich rakshante amritam. Sajosha, Pashuncha, Statrin, Charatham Chapahi. Sri Aurobindo's translation. In thee the gods of the sacrifice found the thrice 7 secret seeds hidden within. They, being of one heart, protect by them the immortality. Guard thou the herds that stand and that which moves. Thrice 7 levels hidden within are in you. Tri saptayat guhyani tuve it. They are in you. Or Agni means in Agni. These states they found hidden within those who are of sacrifice. Padavi vidan padani avidan nihitani yajniyasach. Those lords of the sacrifice, they discovered these states hidden within Agni. 3 times 7. By them they protect immortality, agreeing together. Sajoshach, as Sri Aurobindo says, with one heart. Agreeing, being of one heart. By those they protect the immortality. So you too protect the consciousness of all that moves and moves not. Pashuncha statrin charatham chapai. Here there is also a lot to think of. It is an indication of that the whole existence in its movable and immobile aspects is undergoing the transformation, and that there are laws which sustain the oneness of the being here, known as thrice 7 states of being. It is by these states that immortality is protected from the possible destruction and intrusion of mortality. So these 21 laws of being protect and thus stabilize the world in its temporarily status, so that it can be and live, though it is not possible for it to sustain itself totally. That's why it is mortal. But if immortality is not protected, then mortality cannot sustain itself. So the duality of the immortal and mortal state is maintained by these hidden laws. Without them, the existence would turn into either non-being or would disappear into undifferentiated and unmanifest state of one spirit. So basically these 21 laws, 3 times 7, are the keys to manifestation. It seems it was an important issue also to protect the consciousness of the creature, the true consciousness of immortality within every creature, so to say. Otherwise it may be lost in the consciousness of mortality. In some other place, the Rishi says, Abhisyama pritsutir martiyanam. May we withstand the pressure of the mortals, which explains the concern of protecting the real consciousness of immortality in the embodied creature. So to say, the immortal being which is in the creature has to be maintained. And thus the whole manifestation can take place in every creature, not only in ourselves, but in every other creature. There is this element of immortality. True being there has to be protected. And it is protected by these 21 laws. I think it is, later it is known as occult knowledge. It's also an interesting question because there are 21 laws, arcanum, what we know from the Hebrew tradition. It's also an interesting parallel. There are really 22 laws. Yes, this 22nd one is the overall mysterium of 21 laws, 3 times 7. And these are the occult laws, yes. Here, I think it is rather mother. We have to go to the mother for this, for occultism. She was representing that kind of vision of Chaldean tradition, yes. But she brought also this symbol to Sri Aurobindo, no? This 6-cornered star of David. It is that representation of that tradition. I think they were common for Vedic and Chaldean tradition from before time, yeah? From before Vedic was Vedic, from pre-Vedic tradition. And we can see this 3 times 7 here in the Veda, or we can see it also 22 syllables in Chandogya Upanishad, where they say by 21st they enter into 22nd, where there is no more suffering. We are beyond, yeah, the 7 rishis, the 7 great stars. In a way, all these are symbols of the same knowledge, that there was something which was protecting immortality from intrusion of mortality, and at the same time kind of giving the mortality chance to be and to develop and to sustain itself. This is the dialectics of the two. At least I saw it like this, and it makes sense to me totally. Otherwise, how this oneness could be so, how to say, many, yeah, in manifestation? How manifestation can come into being if it is one, essentially one. So there must be some laws which will make it many and sustain its development. But this concern that mortality can influence immortality and destroy it, so to say. Destroy what? Not immortality, but destroy manifestation. Because if it takes over, it will fall into oblivion, where it should be. So there will be no more sustained duality of vidya and avidya. And the whole scheme will fall apart. Is an interesting concern. I find it very interesting and significant. I don't think anybody else has this concern, at least to my knowledge. So we are moving to number 7 and see what happens with these 21 laws. Vidvan Agni Vayunani Kshiti Nam Vi Anushak Shurudho Jiva Sedhah Antar Vidvan Adhvano Devayanan Atandro Duto Abhavo Havirvat. O Agni, having knowledge of all manifestations or births in the worlds, or knowing all the knowledge of the peoples, establish thy forces, continuous for life, knowing within the paths of the journeying of the gods. Thou becamest their sleepless messenger and the bearer of their offerings. And here we have the conclusive bit of the picture. Knowing all the paths in all the worlds, Vidavan Agne Vayunani Kshiti Nam. Kshiti can be translated as a level of dwelling levels or dwelling planes of being, where creatures may dwell or consciousness may dwell. So of all this Kshitinam, Vayunani Vidvan, he knows the paths the movements of all the levels, on all the levels. Establish your forces for the support of universal life. Accordingly, vi anushak shurudho jiva se dhah. Dhah, establish. Jiva se, for the life, for the living. In accordance with your knowledge, anushak, your forces, shurudhah. And it's quite an amazing, this. Knowing all these laws which were found by the immortals within Agni, so to say, knowing all the paths, that's how he knows all the paths, because he has all these 3 times 7 laws within himself, which are protecting immortality from mortality. Being involved, so to say, he has it within himself, and accordingly with these laws, he can support the universal life. Knowing all the inner movements of the gods, antar vidvan adhvano devayanan, of all those immortals' inner movements, not only outer, you have become the constant messenger of the gods. So to say, it is by them that you are acting, through them, and the carrier of the offering, and the carrier of this offering which is kind of rising to the higher purpose or consciousness. So from one side it introduces the gods, the consciousness of the immortals, and from other makes the offering. So the movement of the gods and the movement of man are meeting within him. And these are the 21 laws by which these two movements meet. And it is actually very true, those who studied occultism, these 22 laws, they will see exactly these two movements there. And by the way, the 6-cornered star in occultism also means 2 ways. One way is descending consciousness, and one way is ascending consciousness. And they both meet. And when they meet, this is the 6-cornered star. The meeting of 2 consciousnesses, so to say. So the protection of the original consciousness and the maintenance of the world's consciousness is provided by the 777 laws. The same laws provide the exchange of energy and communication between the 2 hemispheres. And it is done by Agni, who knows all the paths and thus can introduce the transcendental forces of consciousness, the gods, into manifestation and carry the offering from here to the transcendental realms. These are the paths, the laws. Suadhiyo diva a sapta yahvi rayoduro viretajna ajanan vidan gavyam sarama dridham urvam yena nukam manushi bhojate vit. Sri Aurobindo's translation. The 7 mighty ones of heaven, the rivers, placing aright the thought, knowing the truth, discerned the doors of the felicity. Sarama found the vastness, the wideness of the cows, whereby now the human creature enjoys the supreme riches. So thus, perfectly placing the higher thought, the 7 mighty streams of heaven, who realize the dynamic truth in all its aspects, have discerned the doors of the treasures. Rayoduro viretajna ajanan. The intuition has discovered the vast and firm rock full of illuminations. Vidat gavyam saramadridhamurvam, which now the human creature totally enjoys. Yena nukam manushi bhojate vit. So once the Sarama discovered it and they are released from their firm place, this vast light which was hidden within the darkness, the human creature totally can enjoy the riches. So once these tri-7 laws are used, the mighty streams of consciousness power which constitute the 777 laws shall place the thought aright here. It's also interesting that 7 rivers and 3 times 7 is actually, these are related. They are these 7 streams of consciousness and 3 times 7 these streams of consciousness. There's nothing else 7 here. So these streams of consciousness are met 3 times on the physical, vital and mental plane, and these constitute 21 laws. Sorry. The telephone was calling, sorry. So, and it's interesting that in the next verse he immediately goes to this mighty streams, thus perfectly placing the higher truth, the 7 mighty streams of heaven, who realize the dynamic truth in all its aspects, have discerned the doors of the treasures. It is them who are working within this 777 laws of manifestation. And the intuition has discovered the vast and firm rock full of illuminations. So intuition is working accordingly with this movement of Agni. Basically it is because of him that the treasures are discovered in the darkness, which now the human creature totally enjoy. So once these 7 laws are used, the mighty streams of consciousness power, which constitute the 777 laws, shall place the thought aright here. And once that is done, the intuition can discover the hidden and firm places full of illuminations. So there has to be an alignment, so to say, with this thought aright, which can be done only by these 7 movements, so to say, 7 streams of consciousness, which are putting thought aright. And once they do it, the intuition can discover that place full of illuminations, which thus become a possession of human beings. This is the way to a true liberation. Not a liberation as running away from manifestation, but a liberation within manifestation. There is something to think about here. I think this is the whole process of true finding of the hidden meaning. But there is something to think about here. We have to read again and again and try to think why they put this knowledge in this particular perspective. About the streams, 7 streams of consciousness putting thought aright, then intuition can discover this hidden light within, and then we become free. So these 21 laws, we have to come back to them again. So since it is already time, so maybe we should wind up here. Yes, it's a knowledge of some kind. What it does to me, it tells me how this one world functions as many. And you can really rely on both, on the oneness of the world, and this manyness is not just kind of a phenomenon which appeared by chance. Yeah, it is well controlled and well thought out, so to say, manifestation, with all possible controls of consciousness over being. And that is something really amazing. It's a knowledge of some kind. Mother even refers to this knowledge in an interesting manner. She says there was a knowledge in the ancient Egypt which was so correct and so perfect that it could work by itself. without even you wanting it. Yeah, it's a science of some kind. It's an ancient science how the whole thing makes sense. We come back to this hymn and we and finish with it next time and see what Aurobindo has to say, because now what he says there will make so much sense. I read it afterwards, and it really that which we all want to know, but we can't see it without really making a preparation or a homework. Okay, so shall we end with a minute of silence? Om Vang me manasi pratishtita mano me vachi pratishtitam aviravir maedhi vedasyama anisthaha shrutam me ma prahasihi anena dhitena horatran samdadhami ritam vadashyami satyam vadashyami tanmam avatu tadvaktaram avatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.